my attention now to the big discussion really on the show this evening. We're talking about the new wage code which will kick in from April 2021. So it's not new in the sense that this was passed last year, it was finalized earlier this year and we all knew it was coming. But as the time draws closer for the new wage code to come into place, it has caused quite a bit of concern among employees and employers. What it effectively says is it redefines wages and sets a benchmark for basic pay. Now, anyone who works in a formal sector organization knows when they look at their pay slips that there are many sections to it. There's basic pay and then there's your provident fund and other sorts of compartments which go in. Now the government wants to set and has in fact set a benchmark for what defines basic pay, and this in fact may impact how much you take home at the end of the month. What does it really mean? How does it break down? My colleague Mubina is here doing the math.
Well, the new wage bill will be effective from the 1st of April 2021, and guess what? You may be seeing certain changes in your pay slip. Remember that your CTC comprises two aspects. One is, your basic salary, and the other is allowances. What essentially are allowances? Basically any expenses that you incur in order for you to be able to perform your job effectively. So just a rough gist, your basic salary will have, maybe your basic pay, your dearness allowance and a retaining allowance. This is actually what is classified as wages under the new act. Now, what is excluded from the definition of wages is any bonus, housing allowance, conveyance allowance, special allowance, provident fund, gratuity, so on and so forth. Now, what the act says is that all these exclusions that I just mentioned should not be more than 50% of your total income or your CTC as we call it. Now, if you look at your salary slip right now, you'll notice that the basic salary will be anywhere between 25 to 40% of your total CTC, and a majority of your CTC will be these allowances. The reason behind this is it's better tax benefits for the employee, and for the employer, the amount that the employer will have to pay towards your provident fund and gratuity will be lower, because these retirement benefits are calculated based on the basic salary. So what the government has done is that now basic salary for the purpose of calculating these retirement benefits should be 50% of the total CTC. So any excess in these allowances should be plowed back into the basic, and then you sort of calculate 50% and you sort of calculate the retirement benefits like gratuity, provident fund, so on and so forth. So what this means is that there's a possibility that your employer may keep the structure the same, but your allowances will go down and the provident fund contribution will increase, because obviously your basic has been increased to the extent of 50%. However, they'll make the changes in your allowances and reduce your allowances and increase your provident fund, increase your gratuity. So the implications of this are that firstly, there is a possibility that since your allowances are going down, you may not enjoy those tax benefits that come along with it. Secondly, the take-home salary may be lower for you, because obviously now your employer will cut more towards provident fund and gratuity. But the good part of this is that because they will be deducting more towards provident fund and gratuity, you will get better social security or retirement benefits when you will be 60 or 65. So that's a positive. For companies though, it looks like their overall costs are only going to increase, because first the administration bit of changing salary structures, and secondly of course the higher contribution to the employees' provident fund.
So isn't it a good thing if there is more money saved for your future? Is the timing really the problem? Because remember, we are still in recovery phase from the coronavirus pandemic. People need more money in their pockets. Companies don't need a cost increase on this front right now. So what really are the concerns? To speak on this, I am joined now by MS Unnikrishnan, who is the chairman of the CII Industrial Relations Committee, and Nitin Sethi, who is CEO of Performance and Rewards at Aon India. Welcome to the both of you, and great to have you on the show. Mr. Unnikrishnan, let me get your your point of view, why are employers concerned? I can understand employees don't want to reduce take-home pay, but from the company's perspective, what is the concern?
First and foremost, we are talking about a concept of a CTC and a readjustment of a salary versus a basic salary and stack up above the basic as percentage of that as allowances. So if a company is already operating on a CTC mechanism, it won't impact the company at all. However, if your current agreements are based on some basic salary and the allowances are a percentage of the basic salary, then naturally there will be an increase the moment you increase the base salary to that level. So renegotiations with labor unions in the blue collar may add to the current woes that we are already having. And so let me be very honest about that. None of us are asking for a change in the wage code bill because it's going to be benefiting a lot more for the workmen and representing CAA, and which is an employers organization. We do not want to hurt any workman or anybody of the kind. That's very clear from our side. However, what we have possibly spoken about that is, as we are reworking the way of implementation of the wage code bill, we may have to discuss a lot more. And currently, one challenge that all of us are facing in the industry is the people who are going to be impacted by this are the MSMEs, not the larger companies. Because most of the larger companies even today have converted the labor agreements into a CTC orientation. I'm talking about even for blue collar. However, the MSMEs haven't come to that level. And we are grappling with the situation of the supply side improvement to be done. As demand is increasing, there is a shortage of labor. At this point of time, should there be a dispute with the labor unions for the medium-sized companies is a question that we are asking. Because of which we are not advocating that we should be changing anything in this one. Let's take time, discuss a lot more and implement it. And while implementing it, make it easy for the organization. That's all the recommendation from our side, Tamanna. Otherwise, let not anybody get a feeling that we are wanting to be going against labor. Sorry. The wage code bill is going to be helping the labor and CAI is with them. And we want their life to be improved. I'm making this stand very clear.
Mr. Unnikrishnan, I just wanted to understand that there are reports that industry organization, including CII and others, are due to meet the Labour Ministry, in fact tomorrow, as per reports. Is there any such meeting set up? Is there a clear agenda to this meeting? And when you say let's try and see how this can pan out better, are you asking for a postponement of the start date from April 2021?
If you're, let me be telling you that it's not only for wage code bill. There are 4 bills which got passed in the last year and a half. First was the wage code bill in the parliament before the lockdown. During the lockdown period, we had 3 more of the codes for the labor code, industrial labor code, social security code, all of them got passed also. To operationalize each one of them, there is a consultation happening between the government, that is Ministry of Labor, industry associations, labor unions and various other stakeholders also. So tomorrow there is certainly a meeting. This is one of the meetings, not the only meeting. We have had a number of meetings happening so far with them. We have also had consultation with them at the state levels because some of the laws are in the concurrent area where when states have to be enacting it. So we are looking at the practicality of implementation. In that case, I repeat it that way, there could be a likelihood that in our discussion with the government, we might say, we are not going to be demanding that this is something good for the industry, for the labor, but can you implement it in the current condition when there is something it's a little higher priority? So that's all about from our side. There is nothing that any of the industrial associations, I'm representing here for CII, but since I'm generally aware of what's happening, there is no industry association which is going to be telling, let's not have the wage code bill. We are all for it. How to do that while implementing? Because some of this are, now we need to have a wage code board to be created to create the minimum wage, national minimum wage, then to have the law and maybe the mechanism for having for the skill-based differentiation, location, geography-based differentiation. All that will be needing time. So in the normal circumstances, all of us would have been able to travel, but even travel is impractical right now. What did you talk about as an earlier subject, Tamanna? It is about another fear. Will there be longer lockdowns? So in the current circumstances, should we look at together Maybe a slight postponement for it. That's about it. Otherwise, nothing to change. There is no relook at the wage code bill related to should we change the
slight
contents of
postponement.
it.
Okay, now we've spoken about it from the company's point of view. Let me get a sense from the employee's point of view. We did the math breakdown for our viewers about how it will impact take-home pay. Nitin, Sethi, how do you look at this aspect of a reduction in take-home pay at a time when money in hand has already been impacted due to a number of factors, right? There has been some paring down of bonuses, or there have been paring down of variable pay components for people. A lot of tax exemptions have also perhaps gone out of the window because of working from home and those kind of changes. So what is your take really on this new set of a definition of wages kicking in from April 2021? Are we ready for it?
Yeah. So Tamanna, thanks for that. And I think Mr. Unnikrishnan did answer a bunch of some of the things that you're saying. So firstly, I think there isn't I would say any kind of a doubt about the fact that these four labor codes that are going to come in the long run are going to be good for India in general. We're a country that's had complex maze of legislations. It has actually, hurt the MSMEs as much as the large companies. So in that sense, it will solve a bunch of those problems, make life simpler for employees, employers, and hopefully will have a real positive impact in terms of India's ranking in terms of ease of doing business. Many business leaders across the country have spoken, positively about this. Now, the challenge in this is that could there be an impact in terms of what you take home as net take home? The answer is most likely yes, because if you go back and look at India's compensation structures, in by and large, a lot of companies, especially the new age, newer sectors, have their basic salaries which are at about 35 to 40% of the total compensation. But there are lots of old engineering companies, including some very, very large in size, that have basic salaries that are still at 20, 25, 28 or 30%. I think the big impact is going to be there. In fact, we've got clients that are, $1 billion setups in India, with 20, 25% of their salaries as basic salaries. And the impact that this is going to create for them could wipe out a quarter's profits in that context. So, and that's not what we are looking at. So that's on the employer side. I think in the long term, it will help us. It has a bunch of things that actually helps you, take labor reforms much ahead, which has been the ask from the global community too. Now, coming back to this year's compensation, or if it was to get implemented on 1st of April, could we see a net reduction in salaries in some places? The answer is yes. In some places, it could be 3, 4, or 5%. In some places where basic salaries are really low, the impact could go up to much higher. One needs to calculate, but from an employee's perspective, it would be. But I think as part of a longer term transition that we need to do, so this is potentially the step in the right direction.
Just quick interjection, Nitin, quick interjection to get a sense of impact. Can I just come in very quickly to get a sense of impact across range of pay scales? So, for example, would this have a huger impact for middle and senior level employees and lesser impact for entry level employees? Is there any kind of differentiation that you could tell us about that?
Yeah. So, Tamanna, I wouldn't go to say the difference is going to be between senior, middle, junior workmen. I think it's to a point as to what is the current composition of the basic salary in your total compensation. If your basic salary is let's say at 40%, your impact would then not be as high, could be 2, 3, 4%, depending on, what the rest of the structure is. But if your basic salary today sits at 25, 30%, then that impact could go up to 7, 8% in terms of total compensation. So it really is more an outcome of how are you structured from a compensation perspective today. And I think the challenge that India Inc. has, to Mr. Unnikrishnan's point, is that a lot of this could mean higher provisioning on your balance sheets in terms of what do you do about gratuity programs. Is this the right time to do that? As you come out of this crisis, you would rather use money for investment and for growth than to kind of put those provisions on balance sheet. And also the fact that, salary increases in the coming year are going to be slightly muted as compared to what they have in the previous times. So even if there was a balancing act that needed to happen in terms of your increases and how much could they be offset, I think that's going to be a challenge. But in the long run, this is, I would say this is a step potentially in the right direction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nitin Sethi, as well as Mr. Unnikrishnan, for joining us on this discussion this evening. Perhaps it's also time to start giving a choice to employers and employees on how they really want to structure their salaries, take home, as well as planning for the future.